top side of Jesse, try to stay close to 40 hours, but you might have an hour or half hour over sometimes stuff. But I've been at 40 different times all summer and stuff. But
Greg, what do you do for water main, what the topic was brought about water main breaks and 2 man, do you try to schedule so that you don't have people gone, and you try to keep 2 people around all the time?
We're not on call, per se, but we always try to make sure somebody's around. And if it would come down to a time when there'd be one person in town, we'd have to hire first rate or somebody else to come in and do the digging for us. And then the guy would work alongside him. We tried to do all of our own stuff. Last year, we had the water break out here, we had to hire that done because with the frost, we couldn't touch with our equipment anyway.
Okay.
Plus, we were plowing streets at the same time, so, there's some stuff you're just gonna have to hire whether you have a full
Sure.
crew on hand or one person around, so.
So is there times in your mind where you could see, I mean, like the episode that you mentioned there, you had to hire it out anyway. Is there times when people were gone, when there was a water main break, or you needed 2 people, you didn't have 2 people, and you hired them?
There's been water breaks when I've been out of town, yeah, those guys had to do it. There's been times when Terry was just part-time, I had to have him come in and help us back, you know. It's, water mains are unforeseeable, you just can't predict them. Same with snow, I mean, just like snowstorms this last year, if it looked like it was gonna snow on Saturday, you know, you hate to tell Terry to cut his hours back so he can work and be there on Saturday, then if he doesn't, and all of a sudden we don't get snow on Saturday, then he's short hours, you know. And, you know, Sunday's an easy thing, since Sunday's the beginning of our work week, so if it snows on Sunday, he comes in, but he could be done on Wednesday. And if we'd have another storm come in, then, you know, we either run short or we bring him back in, so.
Hey, Craig, I know we're past the budget time, but what's the need for an additional full-time and then, you know, on top of what Terry's already doing? Would that alleviate some of your snow issues in the winter too, if you had another full-time
The
person?
thing with us is for snow removal, it's just nice to have one guy on call or 2 guys on call to have him come in. If you have winter without snow, I mean, there's plenty of stuff we can find to do with 4 guys. I mean, you start getting too many guys, then all of a sudden you're, you know, trying to figure out what to do. We went up from 2 quite a while ago and hired Jesse, and then it's been a few years ago when I got Terry brought on part-time, because we used to hire people just to help us mow in the summertime, but we're too busy to have unlimited hours for summertime work. I needed somebody to come in the spring and start helping right away, and then somebody to snow removal, somebody in the fall, so basically got to the point that we definitely need another person hired on, and that's when we jumped Terry's hours up to 39, and. I mean,
Well, I think, you know, maybe, I'm not all against looking at something, a different verbiage there, Scott. We need to have something we need to figure out some verbiage before we.
I think, it's like Mark said, it's 2 issues. It's the verbiage, if you wanna change it in the current full-time job description, and then talk about the position, and if you wanna promote Terry within. You know, we revamped the employee manual about a year ago, went to a different format. I don't think we touched anything with that as far as hiring, but we should probably double check that, and we can look at that at the next council meeting, just to make sure how it reads, and that, you know, when we can just
I think,
come on in.
as far as the job goes, I think we lose a lot of flexibility, because right now we're 3 full-time with 1 full-time, part-time that maxes out at 39 hours. And I think if we make the move to eliminate the full-time, part-time, and just make it a full-time position, the flexibility you gain with just the hours alone. Because the work's gonna have to get done. You know, so if it's, you know, if Terry's done on Friday at 39 hours, you know, when something happens Saturday or Sunday, I mean, you're bringing somebody in. You're bringing Craig in, or you're bringing Neil in, or you're bringing Jesse in, or you're bringing outside help in. Same way with part-time. I mean, if it's snow removal, I mean, you got part-time guys coming in. You're paying somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And if you don't need the work done, then you're not paying anybody.
No,
So the money's a wash, because if you need the help, you're paying them.
I agree with that, Mark.
So-
I do agree with that. It's just the verbiage of the job description going to, you know, high school or equivalent, and then saying like kind or like
Yeah,
experience.
I don't care what the verbiage is, and to tell you the truth, you know, I don't care if we make the verbiage to suit Terry, because I'll tell you what, the thing that's, I'm not here to toot Terry's horn, but when Central States came in and they had a laundry list of stuff they wanted, there was one person that knew what was in that ditch. And it's that guy right there. That guy knew what was in that ditch, and that helped bring Central States in there. What was in there? Water or electric? There was something in that
Water,
ditch.
gas, no.
Yeah, so, you know,
I won't debate you on that at all, Mark. I know Terry's knowledge of this town
yeah,
is, it's hard to put anybody up against that.
yeah.
But I'm worried about the job description in the future. The next person we hire is a full-time employee position, and, you know, we gotta make sure we don't get ourselves into where it's subjective, and Craig can say, well, this person's got so much thing, and say, yeah, he's good to go.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion that the city administrator research the verbiage for minimum qualifications under education.
Did you go with the advertising thing too?
What's that?
Weren't you going to look into
How
the
we,
manual
as far as if we have to advertise.
and research whether it has to be advertised or not? Is that possible? If you're so inclined.
Yeah, and had research hiring within.
Second.
Whether it has to be advertised. Promoting within.
I guess I'm gonna take a slightly different approach on this one. I agree with everything that's been said in regards to flexibility hours, Terry, the amount of work that you do and the value that you bring to the table. However, I'm an advocate for education. Right now, Terry doesn't have his GED. And I'm not sold on the fact that Terry cannot successfully obtain his GED. Terry, I know 6-8 months ago, we've had this discussion somewhat, but I mean, you're a smart man, you have built houses, you understand how to run equipment. I think you can obtain your GED. And I don't think, or I would say that it wouldn't be right for the city council to consider lowering the expectations of a full-time employee to suit the needs of one individual person. To the mayor's point, I'm concerned what that does for future candidates of the position. I think having a high school diploma or GED is a reasonable expectation for a full-time employee of the city of Hartford as we do continue to grow. And I think if this acts as the kick in the pants for Terry to go get his GED, so that way he can qualify for health insurance, I think that would be a benefit to him in the long run. And I know that health insurance is, with your wife looking at retiring, is a key thing in his back pocket as well. So I guess what I'd like to do, instead of seeing us lower the bar, maybe we do something to help Terry obtain that GED. Whether it be we pay for tutoring classes or pay for fees for him to go take the test, allow him to do it on city time. I don't know what that answer is, but I'd rather help him grow than settle.
Okay. So the motion on the table, Karen?
Mark made the motion for the city administrator to research verbiage for minimum qualifications under the education portion of the job description and to research the possibility of promoting from within
Without advertising,
without advertising.
basically, right, Scott?
Yeah.
Okay,
Second by Scott.
second by Scott. So any other discussion on that? We'll vote for the research.
I'm gonna, you know, Brad, I agree with you, education is important, but I also think there's no better education really than life experience. I think something within the verbiage can read that, you know, we take special consideration of life experience over the GED or high school diploma requirement. I think it should be an and or. Scott, do you think so? I mean, I think it's an and, or it can be more of an and or
Sure.
type, because I'm looking at, that's kind of what we're saying with the economic development director too. You know, we got the and or, clause in there, rather than need this, need this. I guess that's kind of where I'm at. You know, if we can just include an and or type of verbiage, rather than, you know, it's all or nothing.
Would we be able to, I don't know if we can legally do this, put in that job description that may be a consideration after a certain length of employment? I don't know how long Terry's been an employee exactly, but if we said, you know, you're part-time for 2 years, and if you get past that point, you think you have the experience with the city itself?
I think you can put anything you want in there.
Yeah.
I think whatever verbiage, I mean, yeah, that'd be the same thing, you know?
Just to clarify, the motion on the table is just to do some research, so let's get through that.
May want some
Well,
suggestions.
Mitch has some ideas for us in the next meeting, so we're gonna vote. Scott,
Yes.
Mark,
Yeah.
Brian,
Yep.
Brad,
Yes.
Doyle.
Yes.
Is there any correspondence? Had enough. Good. Ready to get into the report? Start with Mitch.
Pool project, we were expecting to have preliminary design plans in November on that project. Capital plan, I've got a presentation, we've got the final documents there for you guys to look at. We'll come back to that. The water main extension project, they had the bulk of the work complete up there, they did their tie-in today. The line coming out of the tower. We have a pay request on that project tonight too. Maybe we want to approve that quick.
You have a pay request?
Make a motion for the application number 1 and final to Missouri.
This is
You're
for
looking
the
at that, Lauren, you're
Metro.
looking at Metro.
Yeah, sorry.
Or, I'll make a motion for pay application number 2 to Metro Construction Incorporated, $315,300.45.
Motion by Mark, second by Doyle, for the pay application, any discussion? We'll vote, Mark,
Yeah.
Scott,
Yes.
Brian,
Yep.
Brad,
Yes.
Doyle.
Yes.
So on that project, they'll be, they got some fine tuning and do some seeding out there and those types of things. We'll have a final inspection here in the next few weeks, and then we'll probably have a final pay request coming through another couple weeks after that.
Yeah, that main should be up and running probably by the end of the week if the tests come back here in the next couple of days. So they're all finalized, hooked up, and some that's already been passed as far as pressure testing. One of the back teeth tests passed here the other day. We got one more we're taking today for a half of it, and so they'll be working on the other half here to get it passed. So.
You know, I never asked this question, I don't think. That 16-inch pipe will get us our 1,800 gallon a minute.
1,500 gallons more. And then
That's
some.
what the contractor
They'll put us up to contract.
Yeah.
Will that pipe handle more than that?
Oh, yeah.
What's the maximum gallon per minute that pipe?
Depends on how much pressure. I could Google that. I think I looked.
No, really, I mean, if we contract in the future for more, are we gonna be limited again by the pipe size?
16 inch is a big pipe.
Yeah.
I mean, most roadways like that, I mean, 16 inch is about as big as you get on.
But is that will that service 2,500 gallons a minute?
I'm thinking it'd be
I
probably.
don't know the gallons, but I expect that will serve you for a lot of years. Yeah.
How many years?
I'd say 20.
So, I mean, it'll,
The 1,500 gallons a minute's a lot of water.
Oh, I know it is, but I'm sitting here thinking, I don't think I asked that question before, what the maximum flow rate of a 16-inch pipe is.
When we originally were looking at design it, you guys were thinking, what, 13 or 12 inch? And
Yeah.
we decided to step up because the price difference wasn't gonna be that much.
So it's upsized right
We
now?
upside.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
we do, just maybe not everybody knows, but we do hydraulic modeling of you guys' system all the time. So we have a model in our office that tells us what size lines mains need to be to support growth beyond what you guys have now. So that model told us that it needed to be a 12 inch, and we decided to bump it up even further to a 16 inch just for safety
That's a
factors.
good idea.
Craig told me.
All the great guys,
Well, now we know I didn't have anything to do with it, huh?
The Mike Franken Trail, we did some illustrations for an alternate route through there. Sounds like they're on board with the route, from my understanding.
Yeah, talked with Nancy at the state, on Friday, talked with her on the phone actually, and she had ran that, last route we had proposed, by the state and by the Federal Highway Authority, and looks like they will accept that plan, so, we're gonna move forward with that. You're gonna start checking if the delineation is okay, we got enough area delineated. We'll work on, getting agreement between the city and the school, and hopefully, maybe next year put it in.
Why are we looking at delineating wetlands if we're going around them?
There's the project that we originally called out where we had our delineator delineate. Where we're now crossing is outside of that project limit that she delineated in. I don't think there's any wetlands over there, but we just have to have her sign off that there aren't.
So it's further
Yeah,
down
we
the
just
road.
have to make sure that what we're gonna cross now.
So when you say delineate, you mean just to check and make sure we don't have to
Basically, yeah.
delineate,
Yeah,
okay?
we have to ensure that.
The South Main Edition, I've been in contact with the developer's engineer there, Twilts and Mung, about the drainage along the east side of those properties. I don't know if anybody's been out there recently, but the water's kind of sitting back there, it's not getting out of there. So I had called them and asked them, what the issue is, what they think the issue is there. And it sounds like there might be an issue with the backyards that are constructed along Tessa, maybe are lower than what they planned them to be. So I just asked them to get a plan together to show us how they're gonna resolve the issue. I've talked to Teresa, we would recommend that you guys don't, approve any building permits in that area until we get this resolved with them.
It's kinda like the only way we can hold the developer to actually correct the problem, is to hold off on any building permits on their new development till, like I said, they submit a plan that our engineers approve of to get rid of that drainage. Otherwise, if they start any more houses on, the new part, we're gonna have drainage problems for those property owners.
I think what the solution will end up being is probably a storm sewer catch basin in the back there to drain away the water is my kind of what I expect at this point. Which is a fairly easy fix for them, I'd say.
Do we need to take action so building permits can be obtained for South Main Edition until the action is taken?
I don't think at this point, maybe, I think we can wait and see what the developer comes back with and says what he's gonna do, and make sure he does something. If he decides he's not gonna do something, then I think we need to take some action, but at this point, I think maybe we can just work with them and make sure that gets resolved. I just won't issue any building permits until it's resolved.
Okay.
I do have a presentation for the CIP. Do you want to go through that now or go through the other reports?
Yeah, so let's do it.
It might take me a minute to get
Do you wanna do the pay up while he sets up?
Sure.
The pay up for Missouri Petroleum on the Microsoft?
Mark, you wanna go ahead with that one?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we, pay application number 1 and final to Missouri Petroleum Products Company LLC for $118,000, $118,019.78.
Second.
Motion by Mark, second by Ryan. Discussion on that?
That came in under, right, and we did more than,
Yeah, we had 120, so we had,
We got more streets done.
yeah, we did more.
yeah, we got quite a few more streets done there.
Okay.
We'll vote. Brad?
Yes.
Doyle?
Yes.
Mark?
Yeah.
Ryan?
Yep.
Scott?
Yes.
The engineer?
I'm not a computer engineer. You're gonna have to tell me if this in focus, is my eyes are still.
That's
It's all right.
out of whack from. Okay. Try to be quick here, but what you have there is an updated capital plan for 2016 to the year 2020. And since we got a couple new people on here that maybe haven't seen these documents, but essentially what this is just an evaluation of you guys' it's a very broad document. It's not meant to be an accounting document by any means, but it just gives you kind of a broad idea of what funds you have, what revenues you guys collect in a given year. Has a snapshot of the budget in there and the future projects that you guys are looking at that staff has recommended that we consider for the next 5 years. First few pages are just an introduction. This section gives you a breakdown on the revenue sources. And so, you know, the bulk of your revenues come from property tax and sales tax. You know, the state has a lot of that, those regulations in place that say, you know, you can only.
Can you focus that a little bit, Mitch?
Yeah.
For the audience?
Exactly.
It's blurry for me, hopefully, though. The other way, a little bit more. Going right through it? There you go. That's what you're getting right there. Yeah.
I can't even read it right now. So I had that laser surgery done a couple of weeks ago and I'm still feeling no. Anyway, so what we try to do is just give you a broad overview of the sources that you have in place. Sales and use tax, property taxes, you have your enterprise fees, which your enterprise fees are your water and sewer funds that are meant solely to pay for those types of utilities. License and permits, we have grants in there. We have some money coming back from state and county taxes. Project loans show up in this when we have projects planned. So that's kind of a snapshot of where those revenues are coming from. Your big property taxes at 27%, your sales and use taxes at 22%, and your user fees are coming in about 26%, and your other ones are smaller than that. The next sheet is simply where those, when you receive those revenues, what funds they get distributed to. You have in place, you know, your general fund, which is where the majority of the money goes to. You have your sewer fund and your water fund, which is where all those user fees go to. Other than that, you have your project funds, your third penny fund, agency funds, and customer deposits. The next sheet is a breakdown of your current revenues that you have. What we do here is Teresa helps us project what she thinks you guys are going to have for the end of the year in 2015. So that's what you're seeing on this side over here. So you can see where your general funds estimated to be at and all the other funds throughout. That gives you an idea of what you have kind of sitting in the bank for reserves. The other side of the chart here is a breakdown on all those sources of revenue, and you can see through the last 5 years how what they've done over the years. So you can see your property taxes steadily increased over the years. Your sales tax has kind of been back and forth a little bit. User fees have been pretty consistent. All the other sources are pretty consistent. Grants, that's something that changes every year. That's why there's spikes up and downs in those. Let's see, then the next page. The next page talks a lot about your debt. And as a municipality, you're regulated by the state as how much debt you can take on. You can take on a 5% debt, and that's 5% of what your total tax evaluation is for within city limits. So what we try to do is we get all the information in your guys' records of what current debt you have and loans out there that you're paying off. And we plot, this purple line is that debt line, and we give it a 1.5% growth rate, which is a pretty conservative growth rate. What you're seeing here is the tan ones are projects that haven't gone to special election. They can exceed the 5% growth rate. the state allows you to exceed that 5% growth rate, or that 5% limit with a special election. You can go up to 10% on those projects if the need arises. You can only do it on special projects. I believe it's just water and sewer projects with the county your size. So those ones in red are past projects that you guys went through a special election at one time to get those above that 10% threshold. The second side over here is what we're proposing for debt based on the projects you get that we're talking about taking on in the next 5 years. So you can see those tan ones are still at the bottom. That's your existing debt. And each one of these different colors is one of those projects. And we bring it in and we assume a 3% rate on those loans. And the red, it stays at the top because those are still projects that can go through that threshold. Okay? So you can see as we take on these projects, we're running into that threshold. And this, we don't run into it until we get to year 5 here when we're proposing that big sewer project. So just looking at this at a glance, this tells me that when we get to that project, we might be looking at having to do a special election for that one to allow it to go over that 5% threshold. Make sense?
Tells me we should start planning for that, because we got 5 years.
We have a pretty healthy sewer budget, or sewer revenue.
Yep, I'm gonna show you some snapshots of that too. Here, this is your budget. So these are all the expenses that you guys just approved last month. When we try to break it down, we give everything in kind of a category so you can kind of see at a broad glance. You know, you got 32% in public works and 30% culture and recreation. That culture and recreation largely is from the Mike Franken Trail, the money that's going to be spent on that project. You got 20% in general government, and you did 7% in reserves. So we're showing that in there too as a place where you get to allocate money towards. So what I like about this is it's easy for the general public to look at this and get a general idea where all the money is kind of being allocated by department. This is an infrastructure plan. You guys should have seen this at budget time, and it's simply, it's hard to read up there, but next year's construction, we have the Mike Franken Trail plan to get built, the pool improvements are being built, and we have Nicholson Road in there. We haven't budgeted for it. We're waiting to see kind of what happens with Bassam, I think. But we had that in the 2016 category. A lot of times when we do these, we make our best guess at what years these are going to come about, so we can start planning and thinking about these things. But some of these projects might move to the next year as time goes on. It just depends on what the need arises.
Can I ask you a question about that quickly?
Yeah.
On Nicholson Road, you have $3,044,700.
Yep.
That's the entire project cost?
Yes.
So you're not taking into account assessment, front footage assessments, or?
Not in this number, no. That is actually what you would pay in expenditures.
But that's total project cost?
Yes.
So that doesn't show any money that the city would recoup,
Right.
either from ASM or
Correct.
people, property owners with front footage?
Correct.
Okay. So that's the big number,
Yes.
total project, okay.
Yeah.
Some of those people, Mark, just so you know, some of those people already paid.
Yeah, then the Kelly Point property, for their phase 2 and 3, they have money banked with the city sitting in escrow.
Yeah.
Back when we had the front assessment at $46.50.
Well, and granted, some of that money might be on delayed assessment too,
Yeah, and
because
it's,
Leroy has a bunch.
like I say, property that's not in the city, we can assess, but we can't collect that till.
Yeah, I was just curious whether that number's the entire project or just city's portion.
When we get into these slides, this is a breakdown of each one of those projects, kind of the top 10 projects in these 5 years. What we have up here, so you can see a little bit more of some of that. So like the rec trails project, you can see that, a large percentage of that is grant money. That's an 80-20 grant. So that's why this pie shape looks like this, and 20% of that is coming out of the general fund. But a big portion of it's coming out of the, grant money. The pool project, a lot of that's coming out of the general fund we had. there is a pool fund, isn't there, that's probably actually.
Yeah, this is the money we budgeted for the pool.
And 14% of that is grants on that project. So it gives you a little bit more of a breakdown, you kind of see what we're estimating for costs, in regards to sewer and water and streets and those sort of things on each one of these. So when we get to a Nicholson Road, well, that's what that project looks like, is, the bulk of this project is gonna be through loans. When we were evaluating your debt charts, what we found, your water fund and your sewer fund are pretty healthy. So we're probably gonna start bumping a little bit more money from the water fund towards these projects to try to keep that debt low. When we first did this, we only had, short of 100,000 in there from the sewer, but once we started bumping that up, then it really helped with that debt situation.
Now, Teresa, I talked to you about that, about the one town that does, leases their roads.
Yeah, and I sent him an email about
Never got any
asking, and
back.
never got any reply
I
back.
would call the mayor over there because
It was Baltic, wasn't
it was
it?
Baltic, because they lease, so therefore it doesn't go against your debt.
Yeah, I never heard of that. We've been talking about Baltic actually, looking at some of their rates.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask them that.
Yeah, I asked him because he said it was a company out of Fargo, they just call up, say, we wanna do the street, and all they give, say what the amount is, and it's a lease.
Lease to own or just lease?
End up on back in Old Town.
But I think that way it keeps out of your debt,
Yeah.
doesn't show up on your book as debt.
Yeah. What some people do, when they start talking sewer and water, and they'll do certain surcharges on there too, that a surcharge doesn't go against your debt, from what I understand. Like if you did a plant, like a sewer plant for some sort of a water tower, you could actually put that back on your bill as a surcharge, and then I don't think that counts as debt. But you guys you don't have any of that in place. I've noticed some towns are starting to do some of that, just to avoid the debt situation. So that's kind of what our big projects look like.
What year do you have in Mickelson in?
Nicholson,
We have it next year.
But it's all Aspen, or developer driven. I mean, if Aspen does something, it'll probably get pushed ahead for next year. If they don't do anything, it'll get put off for another year
And that's
probably.
all to be determined by the
I think-
council in the discussion.
from my perspective, I mean, you guys are in a pretty good, healthy position, because none of these projects are anything you really have to take on. If something happens with Assam, then it'd be a good time to look at doing something with Nicholson Road. The only one that maybe is coming down the pipe is probably Western Avenue and the sewer project. The sewer project will eventually have to happen. As traffic volumes increase on Western Avenue, that'll have to get widened. Those are probably the two ones that I'd say we really need to be.
That's what they were saying 6 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, we had that project in there last year too.
Streets will last, but that's true. That was 6
I
years
know, I
ago.
just said,
Western's gotta
I'm
get
just
done 6
telling-
years ago.
I was just telling Craig, we don't have to do
We
this.
don't have to do it.
Both of you, too.
The water treatment ponds, some upgrades out there. Craig and I have been talking about possibly some upgrades, but, we're trying to look a little bit further down the line too. We're thinking that, as we, reach a capacity on these, we probably might be looking at another site for some sort of treatment facility. So we put kind of some money in the budget just as a placeholder for, I think we put $1 million in there, just for maybe improvements, maybe buying some land somewhere. That's kind of what it's in there for.
Just out of curiosity, being how you brought up the water treatment plant. Is there any way to put a rudimentary mechanical plant in front of the ponds to get more,
Yeah.
to get more life out of them?
Yeah.
Mark's been Googling again.
Yeah. There's,
I still think you're gonna run in with you're gonna get your algae, the cleaner it is, the more algae growth you're gonna have on a pond. So you're still gonna have, I mean, right now, we're good and clean when we get to number 3. But
We
as
don't
soon
want
as
algae?
algae gives your TSS bumps up, it can affect your ammonia, I mean, it's.
You don't need to talk down to me, Craig.
He's using all those certifications on you.
no, we've
You know,
been
if you put it on the end of the plant or the other
Well,
side.
I mean, honestly, I had the pleasure of sitting at the table when we did that. And nobody ever thinks about it, but I still think that's one of the best decisions that Hartford ever made. And I never thought I'd be sitting here when we're talking about that thing being full.
Yeah, that was 13 years
That was
ago.
a long time ago.
That was before I
But I
started.
mean, honestly, when I think about it, I mean, where do you go with it? You can't go east.
That's what we're kind of thinking.
Yeah.
about that.
You know, we're working with Brandon and Harrisburg are kind of in a similar situation. They're in a more immediate situation. They're in a more immediate situation, but we're helping them find a site. If you're gonna make a big investment like a plant or an addition like that, you know,
But I mean, the thought of having two different sites to me just,
We're looking at maybe just having a mechanical plant on the
Right.
country. So we're kind of, we've been kind of discussing that to see if what.
and getting away from this?
And, because by the time we get to that point, this would be completely outside.
Obsolete.
And at that point, that'd be prime land to sell off again. So we're just looking, weighing the options and that stuff, and once you dump it and you clean it up, that's what you No, we've been looking at a lot of options, we're taking a look at all there, see what's gonna be best for the future.
just to get through the rest of these, Vandermark Avenue, road project that we have on it, that's 3 years out, we have it closed. Ironwood Drive is on the left, the future connection from Mickelson Road to the railroad, or to Railroad Street, that's on the right. This will probably gonna be passenger in a lot of ways.
I'm gonna back you up on Ironwood, we got our ADL frontage footage, there's no assessment there for those folks on Ironwood that wouldn't apply, is there?
No, there's nothing in escrow right now for that.
Okay, thank you, go ahead.
But they can vote that project out too though, right?
Yeah.
You can protest an assessment, they go,
So, help me understand, I guess I don't understand. The street's already done, so why wouldn't there be an assessment?
The life of the street consistently is about 20 years.
Okay.
So after 20 years, you can legally go back and assess the homeowner again, if the city would choose to do so.
Okay.
That's one thing we've talked about with the streets coming up and maintenance, is whether we have to put some type of a maintenance fee on either footage or property or whatever to help pay for reconstruction of these streets, or you can just do the maintenance of them.
A lot of towns are facing the issue of funding streets because there's never been a really good mechanism for putting money aside. The state used to cap you on a maintenance fee, it was capped at like 40 cents a foot. Well, the reality is if you want to if you want to be able to reconstruct your streets, I mean, you need to set that at probably $5, $6, $7. I mean, we're working with Brandon again, and they're setting theirs at about they got theirs at $1.25, and they figured that's only going to pay for chip seals in their town, and that's it. So now if you start having projects that need mill and overlays or full reconstruction, that money doesn't touch those projects. So now you got to come up with another way to get those projects funded, and some towns might assess on a linear basis, or they might try to increase that maintenance fee.
So like Dell's, Brandon, T, Harrisburg, pretty common practice to have the residents reassess for street construction?
I'm finding that a lot of these towns are kind of getting to the point where they're coming back to these roads. Over the last, Hartford was one of the first towns to really rebuild all their streets in the area. So, that was an accomplishment that you guys made over 15 years. And when you go to, I live in Del Rapids, and there's not a lot of streets that actually have, they're still chip seals, they're just blockers that have been built up. So they've never really had projects where they've gone and assessed those projects. So there's not a lot of towns in that position where they've assessed the roadway, now they're thinking about assessing it again, or reconstructing it again.
How old's Ironwood?
Ironwood was put in probably in 97, 98, somewhere in
So
there.
that could be reassessed.
And the thing is with Ironwood, that was prior to really doing good inspections on them and.
That was prior to a lot of things.
Yeah.
But that assessment only, that value, is $80 a foot? Is that what it is for the assessment? Right?
Yeah,
Right now it's at $80.
Is that 80, I don't
It's not
think,
gonna touch it.
it's not gonna touch the total cost. So-
Especially when you're looking at storms.
Not if you're gonna redo the road.
Right.
The $80 is actually, we just evaluated it for Lennox again. Last year's 80 is bumped up to like 90, maybe 100 or so, but that pretty much gets you a standard street, asphalt, gravel underneath the curb and gutter. That pretty much gets you there. It probably doesn't get you maybe the driveways and having to replace driveway porches or sidewalks, but it gets
That's
you.
just for
We need storm
the street
sewer, too,
resurfacing.
Yeah,
It's
no
not for if
utilities.
you redo
I'm sorry,
any
no
infrastructure.
utilities.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, if we have to have storm sewer in there, then that's above and beyond, which we would on that project.
There's not up there, is there, storm sewer?
Teresa was gonna touch on that in her commentary about the linear foot, something we didn't talk
Yeah, I
about.
put a little bit in just my report, you know, to have you guys start thinking about maybe doing a maintenance fee for, whether it be, you know, an overlay or maybe just the general maintenance like Mitch was talking, you know, our micro sealing, you know, our crack sealing, Meg water we could use it for. I did send an email out to some of the area towns, and a few of them have replied. Some don't have, like Dells doesn't have a maintenance fee, and
Baltic
Canton
started
doesn't.
one,
Worthing's got one. Of course, some of the bigger towns, Pier and Spearfish, they got them, and I just received these today, so I might have more coming in.
We can talk about it more in the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but something to start thinking about, because it would be a way to, you know, a big chunk of our street budget is just the maintenance, like I said, the mag water, gravel, you know, we could use it for crack sealing, you know, the micro seal, so. It could be a way to have a small cost generated every year to build up pay or something.
And then, as Mitch said, it's a good thing in Hartford looking forward and getting all these streets put in, but also streets last 20 years before they starting to.
We're gonna see, on the good street, we'll see 25 to 30.
Yeah, you'll see, yeah, it's a good maintenance program, which I'm sure, I mean, it's, what is it, 7 years
Yeah.
seal, 7 years seal, and then you might be doing a mill and overlay, not a full reconstruct. And, you know, if you can, 30 years is what we're really hoping to get out of these streets that are built properly, maintained properly.
Okay.
The last two projects are, Southeast Sewer Extension, that's that big project that we have in there, that's a $5 million project. This was, Month Avenue Sanitary Sewer, that was a small project that we have some sewer that is still clay in that stretch right there.
Yeah, there's
We need to,
those spots.
we've televised it recently, and it's not in terrible shape, but.
But there was, in our budget, we put 40,000 towards that.
Yeah.
Because that ties in with Sixth Street project too, right?
Yeah, there's Month, there's Sixth, it's got Transite, and then there's also Elm's got some, there's a couple spots we got clay yet, but this one here, the street's starting to really go on too, so.
That sounds like that might sneak up on us. With that, I had other good information I thought. With that, this is analysis, we all sold go through and check your rates, and we did that a couple of years ago, and you guys, upped your rates, to help take on one of these projects. So every couple of years, when we're doing this, we always look back at those and make sure we're still in a good position. And with the projects that we're planning right now in the capital plan, this is your water fund. You can see in 14, this is what we started with, or this is the end year, I guess. And now with the project that we're doing now, we're paying that straight out of cash, we're not loaning any money, so you can see how that takes a hit. You can see how that looks all the way across it, and it's pretty healthy with those projects in there. And we're still, you saw we're under our debt limit, so I really feel you're in a pretty good position that way.
This is just water though.
That's what your water fund. Oh, and that also includes, that water fund includes taking a little bit more money out of there and putting it towards those street projects, 200,000 on each one of those projects, so.
Teresa, can you have Ron pull the numbers if we did away with the summer water break and compare them to those?
Yeah, if we didn't give that
Just
summer
if we
sewer,
didn't give a
maybe
summer
the
break,
difference
just what
would
it would
be if
do
we
to
build
those.
actual gallonage all year round.
I'd just be curious what we're, not necessarily losing, but what the fund would look like if we didn't have that
Get that rate break.
summer rate break.
That'd
What is
just
that,
be-
3 months?
That'd just be in the sewer though.
Yeah, being the
Yeah,
sewer, it
just
only make
the
a
sewer.
difference, because we charge,
Wouldn't be the sewer,
Water.
it'd be the water.
They don't pay for sewer
we give
usage,
it sewer because,
we figure it's on their yard,
Oh, is
so.
it the sewer?
yeah, we figure in the summertime, they're watering their grass or their
Oh.
gardens, and it's not going in the sewer system, it's,
So the water would remain the same, but it would
Yeah.
show up on the
yeah,
sewer
water
side.
would remain the same, because
Okay.
that's just a straight gallon.
Oh, whatever it is, I still want to know.
Okay.
Are the 2% annual increases, is that an ongoing thing, or was
Yep.
there an end date to that, that was something that was
No,
ongoing?
it's just been set in at it each year, 2%.
That was
on
something
water.
we implemented 2 years ago too, because I don't think you were.
We had that for a while in the water. We didn't have it on our sewer, and 2 years ago, we implemented it on our sewer too.
I'd just be curious what that number, especially being about Greg's talking about a mechanical plant.
Well, this, so you can see where your sewer fund, you know, all that projects out to. This does include that big project in like 2000.
Which big project are you talking about?
The sewer extension project, $5 million extension project.
That's showing the $5 million project?
And we projected this out further too.
Well, what are you looking at, a 30-year bond?
It'd be a loan. I mean, we had a,
Yeah, but I mean, you gotta be basing it off something, so you must be figuring it off, what, 30-year bond at X% interest?
what we are figuring is it's a $5 million project. We're hoping to get $2 million in grant money on that because that's the max the state will do for SRF. So we're kind of banking on that. That's, you know, if we get less than that 2 million, then that affects this.
If you don't get that 2 million, it's drastically gonna change that
Yeah.
number.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it means you're gonna be borrowing, it means you're gonna be loaning more money for that project. Remember, if we go back to that debt sheet, how we were up above there, that's why that's probably gonna be a special election project, because it's just it's a big.
So these are best case scenario numbers.
Yeah, best-
You should put that
Best
on
case
there,
scenario.
you should put that on there, best case scenario.
I put some air quotes on.
That's with a $2 million grant in 2020.
Yep. These are some comparisons to you guys' rates compared to other towns in the area. So you can see you're towards the top end, but you're competing with Lennox and Deersford and Harrisburg underwater. You're at $40, and this is comparing basically a 5,000 gallon user. That's what the state uses to compare.
These are gonna change on these other towns though, because they're starting their infrastructure now, or we have ours completed. and done.
Brandon's is gonna go up because we gotta start raising their rates for some of the improvements that they're doing. Del Rapids is talking about